Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Go Premanandi, Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Gyanatimrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stamitam Yena Bhutale Rupa Datis Baba Gante Kam Shri Guru Shri Tapatakam Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Agana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajiv Advaitam Savadutam Parijanasatam Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Bhaganandita Tanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Bandhu Jagatpate Upesha Gopiyata Kantanamostite Bhakta Kanchana Gaurangi Vrindavaneshwari Shabanu Sitadevi Hari Priye Anchakala Putrivitscha Sindhivyevicha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Purnachananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Asagadhara Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Who are you coordinating? What would you like me to do and for how long?
If you could speak on Holyname, we can go to 7th.
Holidays?
Holyname.
Oh, holy names. I said holidays. I speak on holidays, yeah. Holy name. Okay, and until?
We can go to 7:30, then we can take question answers.
7:30, or we can take questions any time, because questions always open up our thoughts, and we start questioning, and we start to sharpen our intelligence and our understanding. Sometimes when we just try to hear the mind, it doesn't always focus. Usually questions and answers are usually quite captivating, we can say. Well, Pavan has asked me to speak a little bit on the holy name. Well, all of you I'm amazed how enthusiastic you are. And all students. When I first came to Delhi, first time in Delhi was in 1976. And I didn't come before that. We were in England. And when we came to Delhi, there was one small temple in Bengali Market, Todar Mall Lane. Now you may not have heard of it. Delhi is a big city. But maybe Bengali Market, still called Bengali Market, I don't know. Maybe they've changed the name. Very small temple. Barely 12, 15 people could get in the temple room. Very small. And there was hardly anywhere to stay. One small room, as far as I remember. Extremely, so many changes have taken place and hardly any Indian devotee was involved in ISKCON at least. And now we see so many blossoming flowers all over India of young men, students, graduates, educated professionals, taking up Krishna consciousness, which you all know is not a... Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was a very... Everybody's heard, I think, of Lord Chaitanya. Yes? Lord Chaitanya, the most merciful incarnation of Godhead, Namo Mahavadanyaya, Krishna Prema Pradayate, that he's appeared to give, literally give, love of God. It's not a cheap thing. And Lord Chaitanya is giving. He's giving it in a process, giving us the medicine which will awaken love of God if we take the medicine according to the prescription. So Lord Chaitanya is very mercifully has given us this opportunity, and now all over the world, and in India especially. And the beauty is that in the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement, everybody thought, when I say the beginning, there is no beginning, but in the West, not in India, of course, it's been there always, but in the West, practically this movement started in around about 50 to 60 years ago in the Western world. And everybody thought that Hare Krishna meant shaved head and dhoti and what have you. But it's not. Krishna consciousness, it's a state of consciousness. Everything we do in life, you could say, is through our consciousness. According to the state of our consciousness, we interact with the material world around us. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he was discussing how to attain the perfection of life, and with one of his most closest associates, his name was Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy was a very intelligent, he was a leader, he was a governor in the government of King Prataparudra. So Ramananda Roy was a governor for the southern states, which included much of Andhra Pradesh and even Tamil Nadu parts. And he was governor. So a big post, intelligent man. But he was a great devotee of Krishna. So when they were discussing, Lord Chaitanya was asking him questions, and Ramananda Roy was answering. But Lord Chaitanya asked the question, how to attain life's perfection, but all the answers were not quite satisfying. And eventually Ramananda Roy quoted a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Gyane Prayasamudra Pastanamante, even so on, that one attains perfection. You stay in your situation you're in, if you want to. You stay in that situation, and you hear and chant about Krishna, giving up all speculation, etc. One hears from the right source. It's called Nivritta Trishna Upagiyamanad. From the right source, those who are pure. We hear that topic about Krishna, and this purifies our hearts. It awakens within us. It's a positive process. It awakens within us our attraction towards Krishna. And he said, you stay where you are. It's Dita. Stay where you are, don't move. Yada deke tada kara Krishna upadesh. Amara agyaya guru torhani desh. Lord Chaitanya also instructed another Brahmin, kind of in South India, Kurmakshetra. He instructed him there, you stay where you are. You study Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. He was a married man. And you teach that to others. So Lord Chaitanya did this. And of course, you do get some, like some of us here today who are, we call brahmacharis or sannyasis or something, but the vast majority of devotees are not. And that's always the case. Well, it wasn't in the beginning of the Hare Krishna movement in the West, but it is now. And that's how Prabhupada and how Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Lord Chaitanya wanted to spread Krishna consciousness to everybody. Wherever you are, you can stay at home and chant Hare Krishna. You can work and chant Hare Krishna. You can do anything and chant Hare Krishna. Chanting Hare Krishna it's easy. It's not difficult. We may have some objections, but it's actually easy. Other forms of yoga are not so easy. You have to be in the right place. Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita. You've all read or seen, at least you have come across the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna explains the process of Ashtanga Yoga. It's quite austere. He also presents Jnana Yoga, and that takes a lot of intellectual analysis to understand. And other kinds of Karma Yoga and this and that, all of which are, let's say, not really, in of themselves, they're not really reaching the objective goal of yoga. They may be stepping stones or ladder towards the perfection of yoga, which is to link. The word yoga means to link. To link with who? To link with the Supreme Yogeshwar, the master of all yogas, Krishna. That's real yoga. So bhakti yoga, which is what we're trying to practice in our lives, bhakti yoga literally means the connection with Krishna through service. So we try to serve Krishna. And in this age, which we're in, which is, as you know, it's a materialistic age, and the method, the primary method of connecting Brahmajayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam with Krishna is through chanting his holy names. This chanting of the holy name is not an ordinary activity. It's not like another pious activity or some kind of mantra meant to release us of our suffering, although it may do that, iti shodasakam namnam kalikaushana nashana, that it counteracts the ill effects of Kali Yuga. It removes the karmic reactions of the living entities. But that's not the real purpose of chanting. That's just a relative effect. The real purpose or the real objective is it actually awakens, the chanting of the holy name awakens our love for Krishna. We may not have much love for Krishna, we may not be chanting much, some of you are, some of you aren't. But this is the process. Just like in the morning, we may go to bed at night, maybe in the morning we have an alarm clock. We set our alarm clock. What time do you set your clocks to? Your alarm clock, what time? Huh? 9 o'clock? 10 o'clock? What time? Huh?
3:30.
6?
3:30 in the morning.
Ooh, fanatics. Fanatics, 3:30 in the morning. We were just going to bed at that time. When I was a student, we would go to bed at 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. We were not very pious students. We were going to parties and what have you, very late, and wasting our time. 3:30, you set your alarm clock, ding, 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 or whatever it does. And you wake up by sound. Is that Lord Shiva? What's going on? Playing Lord Shiva's drum. So we used to go like that. This sound wakes you up. So the chanting of the holy name, it's a wake up. Wake up means we're asleep. We have a very lovely song. It goes, Jeev Jago, Kora Chandra Bole, Kota Nidra Jayo Maya, Pisha Chirako. Wake up, sleeping souls. Not just wake up from your night's sleep, but we're sleeping in the lap of illusion or lap of Maya. We're all thinking we're this body. We're all thinking we're in here, this room, mostly Indian, or we're students, or we're men, or whatever it is. We're thinking like that. This is number one illusion, to think I'm the body. But most of the world identifies with what they're not. And even on the religious platform, we think we're Hindu or Christian or Muslim, Buddhist or atheist or something. We're none of those things. We're not men. We're not women. We're not Indian or American or English. We're not students or teachers or whatever, farmers. Temporarily, it may be that it appears that the body and mind is engaged in that way. But that's not us. Chanting Hare Krishna helps us to realize our true identity. It'd be a pretty good idea to find out who we are. Generally, a person who doesn't know who they are is called a madman. Unless you've got Alzheimer's or something. Dementia. You may forget who you are. But generally, if a person, you ask them, excuse me, who are you? And they say they don't know. They're generally considered something's wrong with them. A bit crazy or something. They don't even know who they are. Well, nobody knows in this material world who they are. They think that the body, which is a dress of the soul, like we have our dress, which covers our body, material body, and similarly, the subtle mind is covering the soul. It's just a dress. This body is just like a dress, covering the subtle body, in one sense. Well, the subtle body pervades the gross body. But then both the bodies, you could say, cover the soul. So this is our conditioning. And we identify with the body. We don't identify with the soul. According to the type of body which we have, and the type of mind we have, we identify with that. And we're very busy in trying to enjoy it. So chanting Hare Krishna helps us to become a little free of that mentality, foolish mentality. Huh? People are so enamored, captivated by this material world and the objects, all the subtle ones in our thoughts. Huh? We're captivated. But chanting Hare Krishna helps us to transcend, to rise above that. There's much more to life than just a bodily endeavor. or mental exercise. There's a spiritual relationship. Yoga means linking with Krishna through devotion. It's joyful. Krishna says, Tushanticha Ramanticha. It is everlasting and joyfully performed. One time, one challenge came. It was a bit of a gross challenge, you could say. But a man was claiming that sex life is much more satisfying than chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhupada challenged him. He said, okay, let's see how satisfying your sex life is. You come on the stage and enjoy your sex life, and we'll chant Hare Krishna. Of course, he didn't do it. But even if he'd done it, how long can you enjoy it? How long is that pleasure? It lasts a short while and it's finished. Maybe you feel tired out or something, I don't know. But it lasts a short while, not long. Or you say some other thing, but these are all temporary relief, temporary, trying to satisfy our senses, but there's only a temporary result. Chanting Hare Krishna is everlasting and ever joyful. Now, if you want to become sometimes devotee, one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, how do we become, I was reading this afternoon, Vrindavan means the place where everyone's mad for Krishna. So how do you become mad for chanting? Krishna Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha. The name is Krishna. It's not a name of Krishna. You could say that, but that's not really true. It actually is Krishna himself. He's the source of all energies. And he's empowered in this name, Vinatvannamanamano. He's fully present in the name. All of his potencies are there in the sound of the holy name. Jannanand, did you know what's that verse? Forgotten. In the Sikshastakam, the second prayer, what is it? Nam Namakari Bahuta Nijasarva Shakti. All Krishna's fully present. We're not fully present, but he is. The reason we don't realize he's with us is we're somewhere else. We're thinking of something else. We are still carrying attachment. So it's like we look at the deity, we see something, but we don't see the real full manifestation of Krishna. According to our conditioning, our coverings of our consciousness, we see accordingly. So the same thing when we chant Hare Krishna. Our mind is full of other thoughts. We're not totally connected to Krishna. Some little bit there, but not. Therefore we get a little bit, a little taste, a little tiny glimmer of light shines in, but not enough, not much, not the full nectar for which we're always anxious. And Lord Chaitanya says, we don't taste that full nectar because we're still committing offenses. Offenses are manifold. They do include being attached. It doesn't mean no material desire. Material desires will always come in our mind. As long as one is in this material frame, material desires will come. Not all the time, but they will come sometimes. Maybe more than others. They will come, but the offense is to be attached to them. So we're attached to them. One of your great acharyas named Jamunacharya said, whenever the thought of sex life enters my mind, I spit at the thought. Not at the sex, but at the thought of enjoying sex life. Every young man and woman has this natural inclination. It's a normal thing. Don't get panicky. It's something one goes through, and generally one gets married and deals with it in that way, and very few may choose otherwise. And as one grows older, if we follow the God-given system for family life and what have you, and then gradually as we get older, the urge generally desists. It generally reduces. And if we chant Hare Krishna, the same time, the heart will be not just become free of sinful reaction, not just even become free of perhaps doing that activity, but freed of the actual cause itself. And the cause itself is we're seeing ourselves separate from Krishna. This is the underlying problem. we're seeing things separately from Krishna. Whereas actual knowledge means to see everything in relationship with Krishna. No matter what it is, everything has a relationship with Krishna. So Krishna's appeared in this age, Kalikalar Namarupa. Krishna avatar, he's appeared in this age, his avatar, his form in the Kali Namarupa as the holy name, so that everyone can get this chance. Why? Because we become what we are by association. So Prabhupada gave an example. If you want to become mad for chanting, means actually that's the nature of the spiritual. Everyone wants to glorify Krishna, serve Krishna, chant about Krishna and so on, hear about Krishna. So if we want to, we can do that in this lifetime. Maybe not 100% right now, but we can do it. And more and more and more, whatever time we may have at our disposal, we try to hear about Krishna. We try to associate with Krishna. So Prabhupada said that if you want to become mad about chanting, he gave an example. And I don't know if any of you have been through this, but he said, how do you become a drunkard? How many of them are drunkards? Anyone here a drunkard? Pavan, are you a drunkard? Are you a drunkard? Is he a drunkard? Did you drink? Never. You don't know what you're missing. I do, because I used to drink. I used to smoke. I used to drink. I used to take all kinds of intoxications. And all the various things that you hear about, which we're not supposed to do if we want to progress, you say, mode of goodness. But we used to do all of them when we were young. We know them all. But you were innocent. But how do you become a drunkard? Prabhupada said, he asked the question, how do you become a drunkard? Yeah. Who wants to be a drunkard? Who would like to be a liquor drinker? Who likes drinking liquor? Nobody. What's wrong with them? Huh? They're not very good customers for the liquor shop, are they? If everyone was like you, the liquor shop would go bankrupt. That's what Prabhupada wanted. Close all the liquor shops. So Prabhupada said, if you want to become a drunkard, you associate with drunkards. And you drink. And you drink and drink and drink. And eventually you become a drunkard. By association. Same thing in Krishna consciousness. By association we hear about chanting. Then you start to chant. It's the same principle Prabhupada said. You associate with chanters, you chant, 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 and you become enchanted or chanter. Simple process. Key is association. Difficult on your own. So you're having meetings here, it's nice. How often do you meet? Huh? How many times a week? Pardon? Every day. That's very good. That's how it should be. Constantly. Regularly. Ashtapraishu Bhaddareshu Cham Bhagavata Seva. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, coming together and regularly hearing together. This is a process of transformation or changing our consciousness away from seeing ourselves in the center to seeing Krishna in the center. So chanting Hare Krishna is not just a Yuga Dharma. It's not just very joyfully performed, but it satisfies Krishna. And it frees us from this false ego of seeing ourselves in the center. Helps us to see Krishna in the center of our lives. That's what we're trying to do. It's not a question of, all or nothing. It's trying to get every single living entity chanting Hare Krishna somehow or another. the world will change. It will be a wonderful place. If everyone was chanting Hare Krishna on the streets, in the homes, wherever you are, what a wonderful place it would be. Everyone dancing and singing. That's the spiritual realm. Dance and sing. Simple occupations. Very beautiful. So, Hare Krishna. First time I heard this Hare Krishna mantra, I mentioned the day was in a football stadium. Or maybe it was on television. It was top of the pops, the most popular music of the week. They would present it and have it on the program. They'd highlight it. So this is 1970, 71. We first heard the Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Bolo Bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, that record, that tune, was one of the top-selling record in the world in many countries, believe it or not. They did it very nicely, along with the Beatles helped to produce it with the devotees. And it became popular all over the world. It was featured in a movie, in a stage musical called Hair in London, famous musical. I also saw that. But it was only when I read the philosophy that I realized and I was convinced to chant. That's what convinced me. I mean, it was one of many things. It didn't really mean anything to me any more than any other song, mantra, or whatever. We were a little inclined towards India, towards yoga, and what have you. We also became vegetarian in my last year at college. But I didn't really have that conviction to take it up in my life. But when I read the philosophy, I started chanting the Maha Mantra. I realized how important this is, how great the holy name is. And I was living at home and chanting Hare Krishna. Anyone can do it. So this is the universal benefit of the Yuga Dharma of Kali Yuga. This, everyone can chant. There's no one is excluded. The only, let's say, only factor which will exclude us is our own choice. Otherwise, everyone can take part in this Sankirtan and feel the effects. So we're going to open up now for questions on the holy name, or anything you like to ask, actually, because you may have other questions on your mind. Ooh, Krishna. Any questions? Yes, Prabhu. What is your name? What do you say? I didn't hear you.
Shubhajit.
That was your name? Ah. My name is Shobhati. I gave it. That was my answer. Any other questions? Your question. Perfectly answered your question. He went, oh. I went, ah. Next question.
Please accept my humble obeisances.
Huh?
Please accept my humble obeisances.
I will. I will accept them. I know they're very humble.
Maharaj, how can we chant with same spirit and devotion during difficult times? Like
During the when?
during difficult times.
Difficult times. Every moment is a difficult time. We sometimes think it's not, but actually, there is difficulty or danger at every step. This material world is full of danger. It's full of challenge. It's full of turmoil and annoyance, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said. When things get a little less disturbing, we call that nice. We call that, oh, I'm having a good time. But actually, in the material world itself, every living entity is suffering. Brahma Bhuvana Loka Punarvatinocha. Whether we're on the heavenlies or the hellish planets, everyone is, because there's birth, death, disease, and old age. Try to understand that, what is difficulty anyway? What is it? What do you mean by difficulty? What would you, give an example?
Material difficulties like
Huh?
we have examinations coming up, or
You have exams coming up,
something
okay.
is not going well for us.
You didn't pass your exams, okay. And you're not doing well in your studies, okay. What else?
Like things are not going as we expect them to go.
Or you hope. Let's say you can say expect. I mean, you can't really use that word too much, but at least as much as you hoped. They're not going what you hoped they would, so you are feeling difficulty. So again, give another example, see if it's the same principle. Another difficulty. What other difficulties do you go through? You go through all sorts in this human life.
Like particularly like we have family issues, like something is not very good in our family.
Yeah, one of the members of the family is misbehaving, or you think that they're misbehaving, it disturbs you. What else?
Bad health.
Pardon?
Bad health issues.
Health is a kind of, you could say, probably one of the most real. It's not real in the real sense, but it's closer to real in a sense, because it's not just circumstantial. One person doesn't care less if they're studying or not studying, another does. It's a relative thing, but health, more or less, everybody suffers from, more or less, in the material world, So health, mental health, physical health, okay? What other miseries? There's no end of miseries, don't you realize it? And the only solution to get out of the misery is chanting. So when you're going through difficulty, that's the time when you really have to chant. Not necessarily to get out the difficulty, but not to be controlled by it, because you get depressed, or you get, it's horrible, it's not nice. How many examples are there? I mean, look at even great personalities, even in the Christian faith, Jesus Christ. Every religion you see, they appear to be suffering. People are criticizing them, even torturing them, arresting them, and they're not disturbed. So otherwise you'll be disturbed, you're controlled. Actually, really, there's no difficulty for the soul. For you, there's no real difficulty. When we lose sight of their goal, then we see all the problems. They say, there's a famous saying, obstacles are things you see when you lose sight of the goal. We have to understand even materially speaking, if you're strong in your goal. I remember there's one famous politician, his name was Abraham Lincoln. Perhaps you've heard that name. American president, one of the early ones. And he was a failure. Most of his life was a failure. But he never gave up. He carried on. Material, completely material. But he succeeded in his goal eventually. He became the President of the United States. Another example is a famous scientist. His name was Stephen Hawking. He was a student at Cambridge University. But when he was 20 years old, he was diagnosed with MND, if you know what that is. Motor neuron disease. Dreadful disease. You know, your whole system is just basically ruined. And the doctors said he had 1 or 2 years left to live, probably. He lived till he was in his 70s. And he said he was so determined. He said, I concentrated, focused on what I can do and not what I cannot do. There's another example. He had so many problems. But he was apparently he was so determined to achieve what he wanted to do in his life, even though there were so many problems, obstacles are there. The obstacles are there in Krishna consciousness now, or let's say the difficulties, to help strengthen us. You read in the Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful section, maybe you've not read it, it's the prayers of Queen Kunti. And she's praying to Krishna, may these difficulties happen again and again. And that's a pretty weird prayer, isn't it? Do people pray like that? Oh God, please make me suffer more and more. Make me sicker. Please help me to fail my exams. Please help my family life to become a disaster. People don't pray like that. They pray the opposite, right? Please make me poverty-stricken. People don't pray like that. Not very often, if ever. And so is she praying? No. She's praying like that because she said, when I'm in this situation, I remember you. Not only I remember you, but if you also are there for me. If you take shelter of Krishna, teno kompam susamikshman bunjaneva pitalupaka. You take shelter of Krishna. You don't need to ask for anything. Just take shelter of Krishna and you'll see. In those difficulties, you'll feel very satisfied. We're not looking for difficulty. Difficulty comes. We're not trying to make difficulties. They come automatically. But when we experience what we think is difficult, we're also in difficulty, but actually it's more difficult when things are going well in most people's cases. They tend to forget God when things are going well. Most people pray to God when they're suffering, isn't it? And when you're doing really well, you forget Him. You think, but you don't even think. You just enjoy your so-called good karma. But, when we realize that everything is connected to happiness and distress, you read the Bhagavad Gita, what does Krishna say? Matra spashas tu konteya shatoshna sukha dukkata, doesn't he? Agamapayano nityas. Tams to tikshashra bharata. It'll come, it'll go. You have to tolerate, that's all. Remember Krishna and tolerate. And you'll feel satisfied. You'll no longer be wow, like this, That's the material conditioning, controlling you could say our intelligence. Use your intelligence, focus it on the teachings of Krishna, chant Hare Krishna, and don't worry, it'll go away. When I was doing my final exams, the very week or 2 weeks of my finals, I wasn't studying engineering, but it was something slightly related, not totally, but to do with, let's say, urban geography and planning and things. But during the morning, and I wasn't even practicing Hare Krishna at that time, it was before I heard of the Hare Krishnas. And I was, every day, I was not a Christian, but I was convinced in my heart of hearts that Jesus was the Son of God and the representative of God. And I like to read the Bible every morning. A friend of mine had given me the Maharaj. He was going to India every year, and the Ramayana. And I was reading these books every morning before going to my college. And I felt so much better. I wasn't transcendental, but I felt so much better. And all my nervousness went away. And mind you, when the final exams came, I didn't know any of the answers. I asked my friend, kind of friend, he was a bookworm, and he was like number one A man, you know. He was always A's in everything. So I asked him what to do. It's only a week left, and I haven't studied all year. So what shall I do? And he told me, well, I think the best thing is you study this, 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 and this. So I just crammed it in, and none of those subjects came up in the exam. Maybe 1 out of 20 or something came up. And I really didn't know what to do. I just wrote what came to my heart. And I passed. They had a good pass mark, and God knows how. I think they made a mistake. Anyway. Krishna takes care, don't worry. He knows what's best for us. You take shelter of him. You do your job, you do your work. Like our Krishna said to Arjuna, Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mamanushu yucha. You do your work, whatever it may be, your studies in your case, but you depend on Krishna. Don't depend on your intellectual capacity only, or whatever it is, cleverness. You're learning. Krishna is a source of knowledge. We try to remember that ultimately behind everything, no matter what it is, what we see as difficulty is only a karmic reaction, you could say. It's only a picture which we're seeing. When we realize we're not this body, the effect of difficulty and suffering is an effect on the mental plane. It's on the mental plane. So when we realize we're not the mind either, not just the body but the mind, then you can be a little detached. It's easier to tolerate, not to be so disturbed. But the main thing is that these are the times when we really need, it's a golden opportunity to take shelter of Krishna. Much glory, a great chance, wonderful chance. But Krishna sometimes puts his devotees in that situation, so they take shelter of him. This happens many times. Takes things away and you have to take shelter of him. Because ultimately all of this material happiness and distress is temporary. It's not us, it's not our property either. And it will be gone after a while. And to try to just make everything enjoyable, which most people do, is not the goal of life. That's not the goal of life. The goal of life is jivasya tattva jignasa, is to inquire into the nature of the absolute truth. That should be the goal of our work. To inquire into the nature of the absolute, not just the relative. Ishopanishad says, yes, when you live in this world you have to have both, vidya and avidya. So don't just focus on avidya. Try to give some time for vidya, for studying Shastra. It may not be that much, but at least try to give some good time every day for studying Shastra. Scripture, Bhagavad Gita particularly the Bhagavad Gita. That will remove your doubts. That will fix you above the duality of this world. And if you chant Hare Krishna at the same time, you'll be very happy, even in the midst of difficulty or danger. Hare Krishna. Anything else? There's an arm up high in the sky at the back. What is your name?
Maharaj, my name is Divyansh. I hope I'm audible.
Divyansh.
Divya? Divyansh.
So, Maharaj, my question was, at times we feel that we are engrossed too much in this self-pity zone. Like, at times, at least if I talk about myself, I'm not able to follow many of the rules of regulations, what we are supposed to practice, like chanting a minimum number of rounds what we have committed, following certain rules, etc. And this way, we feel I'm this, I'm that, and all those things. But in this course of thing, we forget about Krishna. At least about myself, I am so engrossed in myself that I am this, I'm that, I'm so bad, I'm all these things. But getting out of it and really start thinking about Krishna is something. So, Maharaj, please can you help me in this regard? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, we can. Humility, yeah? I remember one time hearing one devotee it was his job actually. He had to counsel people and things. and motivate people. Well, that was his job. And he said, humility means not to think yourself lesser, but to think less about yourself. We tend to think of it, I'm so fallen, I'm this, I'm that, however. But that's, as you rightly said, that's like putting ourselves in the center still. But thinking less about ourselves. Now, unless we think, what are we going to think about if we think less about ourselves? Think about others. Well, that, again, may not be of much value, really. Depends in which way you're thinking of others. What mode of nature you're thinking in. You may be thinking to enjoy others, for instance. That's no good either. It is what it is. Or you may be trying to think of nothing. What's the use of that? So unless we have an object, it has to be something higher, something which we're attracted to. Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita that the first thing that attraction that we have to have an attraction. Vishaya vinivartante. You have to have paramdrishva nivartante, a higher taste. Huh? We have to have a higher taste, an attraction for something more than thinking of ourselves or thinking of how fallen we are, or we can't follow this or follow that. There has to be something there which we get what's called rasa, some taste. Even if we can't follow all the principles, when Prabhupada started this movement, he said, don't worry about that. Just chant and take prasadam. And then they will come later. So, everyone's individual, but basically that was it. So even if we can't follow, there should be something we can do. Something which we're attracted to in Krishna consciousness. It might be practical service, it might be reading, it might be hearing, it might be chanting, it might be whatever it is, doing some work. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you can't follow strictly, well, the first thing is to always be absorbed in thinking of me. If you can't do that, then follow the rules and regulations. If you can't do that, you work for me. And gradually you'll develop a taste for hearing about me. So whatever it is, there's a place for everyone. So you try to do some service. You go a student. Are you a student or are you working? Student? Student? So I know what it's like. I mean, nowadays anyway, you have to kind of work hard as a student. They give you all sorts of extra things to do. And there's not so much time, but whatever time you get, try to do something which you're a little inspired to do. There must be something in relation with Krishna consciousness. What do you like doing? Do you like anything about Krishna consciousness?
Spreading the word.
What do you say?
Spreading the word.
Preaching.
Huh?
Preaching.
Preaching? Excellent. So that's excellent. One time Prabhupada said to one boy, I don't know if it was in London, I can't remember it. There was one boy in a temple, he said, Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to leave. He wanted to leave. Prabhupada said, why? Because I don't really fit in. I don't really fit in. Well, no, I'll get it wrong. I got it wrong. He didn't say he wanted to leave. He said he didn't fit in. So Prabhupada, I said, what do you mean? He said, I don't like the philosophy. I don't understand it either. I'm not interested in chanting. The deities I don't understand at all. I don't know if I believe in any. The devotees, my God, I don't really want to be with the devotees. The Prabhupada said, what are you doing here? Well, it must be something you like. So I like the food, the prasadam. And Prabhupada said, very good. Well, that's very good. So you go out and preach. You take prasadam. You give people prasadam. And this way you develop. When you share what you've got, when you give what you've got is some taste for preaching. So you share it. This way, gradually, Krishna, one by one, he reciprocate. You'll see, as you grow older, as you go through your life, you'll see that is like an anchor which keeps you. And gradually the other things fade away. And it becomes natural to follow the principles. It becomes natural to think about Krishna more, because you're talking about Krishna. Remembrance of Krishna, the first thing is to chant, to kirtan first. Remembrance comes later. So preaching is wonderful if you like to preach. Some of you may like other services, but Try to focus on what you can do in your present situation. Something you feel inspired with. There's got to be an inspiration. There's got to be a taste, Prabhupada said. And he said that generally the first taste we get is the taste for some kind of service. Not so much for chanting or reading. That's also service, and some people definitely have that, but for most people it's not such a very deep taste. Should be, but it's not. But service of some kind or another, try to get into that. That will help you to put Krishna more in the center of your lives. More and more and more. And all these questions, by the way, there is a key which is a little difficult for you to turn, but you're doing pretty good with this base camp here, and whatever else you have, is association. With appropriate association, almost every problem is solved, whether it's the one you asked about, not feeling enthusiastic when you're in difficulty or whatever, or whether, you tend to belittle yourself and think about yourself instead of Krishna and what have you. All this can be, association is really the key if we want to become Krishna conscious, is having the association which inspires us on, inspires us to either persevere or go forward in our spiritual lives, or let go of anchors or unnecessary attachments, etc. Association is so important. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, sir. Oh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, what's your name?
Sachin.
Sachin.
Maharaj, you told that you are also in the bad things. And so how did you...
Does that infer that you are too? You said also, which means, otherwise you say you were, you wouldn't say also. He's a naughty boy, is he?
Maharaj, how did you overcome those bad things in your life?
That's a relevant question, I think. How did I overcome them? You know what? I didn't overcome them. This is the unique thing about Krishna consciousness. A little bit, there's two things here which are like specific. There are many, you could see many things, but two specific angles. One is positive, one is negative. The negative side was, and again, in both cases, it's Krishna. It's Krishna who takes it away. You can endeavor with all your might and all your will, but sometimes you still can't overcome. Because we're small. Daivihesha gunamai. This material energy is very powerful. We're very small and very difficult to overcome. But those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. So I wouldn't think of surrendering to Krishna necessarily, but there was a desire. There was a desire for something, maybe from a previous life, I can't say, but a desire for something, that there is something more than just material life. And I really was wanting it. I don't know what degree, but to some degree I was wanting that. And like Krishna, when I look back at it, I didn't know at the time, but he was taking things away one by one. I had such a bad experience with intoxications that somehow, I mean, it's hard, I'm not going to get into the details, but it gave me such a resolve. I vowed. Now, that's not an easy thing to do at that age, but I vowed never to take intoxicants again, not because of Krishna consciousness directly, but because of a bad experience in that area. And a realization came with it without understanding exactly what the nature was, but a realization came, and I vowed not to. And in fact, that vow was such an important vow that it enabled me to come in contact with devotional service in due course of time. And that's another story in of itself. But other things by association, association again is very important. I just happened to be associating with vegetarians before I came to Krishna consciousness. And not entirely vegetarian, but mostly vegetarian. We were mostly vegetarian even before. That's 1970, which was unusual in England. But the group I was with were mostly vegetarian, or that way inclined. They weren't taking intoxicants. Now, the other ones, sex, sport, I would say that they were on the other side. That when after that test with intoxication, I came, that very day, I received my first Krishna conscious literature, or Hare Krishna ISKCON literature, and that turned on the lights. And from that time, it was clearly obvious that, the hankering or the urge for sex life was there, but it's a lower urge, and it's a binding urge, and it's not something which is favorable for spiritual life. Now, it's going to be there, and it can be utilized in family life and what have you, but we all know that it is very great attachment in this world. So when I started chanting, I became attached to chanting. I became attached after when I went to the temple. I became attached to service. And just like, I can't remember his name at the back, if he's still here or not, I don't know. Divya. And I became attached to distributing books and different things. I mean, my mind was occupied. So when your mind is occupied in devotional service, it's not so distant. Even if a thought for sex life comes along, or a thought for sport. Some of you are probably addicted to cricket. No? Nobody? I know Indian, especially men in India are very attached to cricket. And even though you're chanting Hare Krishna, you're still attached to cricket. When the cricket's on, you're not here. You're watching the television. If India's playing in Pakistan or something, you're watching the TV. And maybe you're not, but I know most Indian men are. Many devotees are. There's an addiction. We haven't developed that higher taste yet. And we're still attached to the lower tastes. So developing an attraction for the higher taste, for the higher principle, the spiritual principle, we lose attraction for the lower tastes of this world. And once you taste the sweetness of devotional service, you don't really want. You don't really want. It may come, the thought may come, the situation may arise. You're with others, and sometimes you may fall down into that. That's understandable. Prabhupada says it's nothing unusual. But you come back again. Try to focus on Krishna again. And the more we're focused, the less we'll be disturbed. So association, we're attached to cricket by association. We're attached to everything in this world by association with the objects, the people attached. So by becoming associated with those who are attached to Krishna, who have nivritta Krishna, who are freed from the attachments to these other things, then we can also slowly become more attached to Krishna, and the attachment to unnecessary things diminishes. But don't bash your head against the wall. Don't condemn yourself. Do the best you can. Do whatever you can, but do it as well as you can. And don't get mental, and don't get depressed, and don't get angry, etc. If you can't come up to the mark which you'd like to, it takes some time. You can pray to Krishna for strength, but still we have our attachments. It's not Krishna's business to completely, if we don't really want to let go, he may or may not immediately, make it, let's say, take it away from us. We have our attachments. So when our attachments to Krishna become stronger, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said it's by association. The more we associate with persons who are seriously spiritually inclined, the easier it is to become freed of these attractions or attachments which we all have in this world. Anything else?
I
What's your name?
Sorry. Maharaj, my name is Karthik.
Kartik?
Yes, ma'am. Maharaj, my question is slightly different from the topic going on. Actually,
Like what?
Slightly different from the topic.
Different from today's topic.
Yeah, no problem.
His Grace Rashman Doji has immensely contributed to all our devotional lives. Even he was the reason for many of us coming to devotional service and bhakti. And now we know he is leaving for France. So how should we be encouraged to be, engaged in devotional service as we were in his presence?
Rashman is leaving for France, and Rashman is leaving for France.
Leaving for France?
Yes,
Who?
Rashman.
Oh, Rasa, is he? He's going to France, is he? He never told me. I'll try to convince him not to if you want.
So he's asking that he was one of the real cause of inspiration.
Oh my goodness.
Now, what to do in his absence?
Come to France. Easy one. Well, you're lucky nowadays, or unlucky, lucky, whichever way you look at it, but you have so much facility now for communication. Now, our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, came to the West alone, started the movement on his own, inspired a few young people to take up Krishna consciousness, and moved along. He went to San Francisco after 6 months in New York. It was there longer than that, but 6 months with these young boys and girls. Then he went off to San Francisco and left them alone. So they were inspired, and we were inspired by remembering the instructions, by remembering, the example, the instructions, and what have you, of that devotee. And not only that, but now you have all these modern methods of communication. You've just had a 3-year COVID period, perhaps 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. And many people, they weren't really able to move around much. Most programs were cancelled. Most things were online. Everyone was associating online, wasn't it? I don't know about here, but in many countries it was like that. And people weren't traveling much like before. Many things were closed. Some people didn't go out of their home for years, practically. And everything became, online. Work, communication, even recreation, practically. So you have the opportunities now. So you remember what you've learned, try to execute it, chant Hare Krishna, try to remember his example if it's inspiring to you, that is. And you can keep in touch through other means. And now you also have an opportunity to increase your Sangha, because naturally now you're going to associate with other devotees a little more than before, perhaps. So you'll get their association as well. You expand. Krishna has his hand behind everything to help us to become, let's say, more self-reliant. Also, it's like when Prabhupada left this world, then, most of the devotees were in their 20s. And most of them in the movement, anything from 1 year to 10 years at most. So they weren't very long practicing Krishna consciousness, really. Pretty big task. But, the devotees who were sincere, they said, well, Prabhupada has given us the process, let's just apply it. Just carry on with what you've learned, you see. That way you feel there's one thing you should know, is that there's two ways of association. One is through Vani, one is through Vapu. Vapu is the personal association. Vani is through instruction. Now, to really get the personal association, you go through Vani. You don't go direct to Vapu. Vani. So you follow those instructions, and you will feel you are getting the association of that devotee. And that's what we experience. By following Prabhupada's instructions, many devotees felt more association with Prabhupada than they did when he was personally present. because he's present in his instructions. And I'm not saying Rasa is on that level of transcendence by any means, but still it's there, and he's been an inspiration for you. So I don't know about this going to France business, so I'll have to ask him about that. You heard you were going to France, did you?
That is what we know actually.
Huh?
This is what we know. This is what we know at least.
Really? I mean, he's not here, so I'll have to talk to him when I see him. We can't move 1 inch without the will of God. We can't breathe without the will of God. So try to see everything as the hand of the Lord acting. No matter what's going on in our life, happiness or distress, try to understand there's a reason for this. We are responsible, but there's a learning reason also. So nobody can move anywhere without the will of the Lord. Nobody can do anything without the will of the Lord. So if you see it like that, then it becomes a little easier. And not just a relative why. Everything ultimately is ordained by the Supreme Lord, even the negative stuff. The Lord allows it to happen for various karmic reasons or for a higher plan. You just like you see in the Ramayana, when Lord Ram was exiled, right? Kaikeyi, with crooked, you could say, appeal intentions, and ended up with Lord Ram exiled. Now, what did Lord Brahma think? You know what he thought? Was he upset, Lord Brahma? No. What did he think? Those who've read the Ramayana a little deeply. He was very happy. Now the plan is unfolding. The plot is unfolding. He could see beyond the immediate misery of Lord Ramchandra's leaving. He knew this was going to, part of the Lord's mission to, remove the demoniac presence of persons like Ravana and so on, as well as to unfold the most amazing pastimes, which are still to this very day, millions of years later, are worshipped, and you can get great relish by hearing them. It's incredible, isn't it? It's absolutely incredible. By reading and hearing about Ramachandra, it may be a little easier for those who are not so advanced in Krishna consciousness also. You read about them and it's so tasty and so inspiring and so purifying. Millions of years later. Now, if that hadn't happened, what would you read? If those pastimes had not taken place, what would you have to read? Nothing. Or less to read. It occupies our minds. Prabhupada said, why Krishna and Ramachandra, all the forms of God, perform so many pastimes so that we have things to think about, talk about. Otherwise, what are you going to talk about? So it's a golden opportunity, you see, to remember that. Even today you see devotees who had close association with Srila Prabhupada, like Shruti Kirti. I don't know if you ever heard of Shruti Kirti, Prabhupada's servant for a long time. He's got so many amazing, he shares so many amazing relationship with Prabhupada. Guru Das, Shyam Sundar, Mukunda. These devotees had Govinda Das. He's so much association with Prabhupada, and they share it. And you feel like you're with Prabhupada. You feel like you're with him. You see? Never alone. You're always together. Anything else? Yes, sir.
One last question.
Oh, there's one more behind you. He's been trying to ask for the last 1 hour.
You can ask a personally.
Can he?
Yes, personally.
Okay, let's see how he treats you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Maharaj, as you mentioned in the class that we have some glimmer of the actual happiness that we could get from chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? We are just experiencing a glimmer of that. Maharaj, how to get the conviction that we will attain that state when we will fully enjoy that state of happiness and we will achieve that state of consciousness where we can experience all those things? How do we get convicted that we will reach there one day?
When you give up the idea of enjoying, then you can really get the taste. As long as we think, I want to enjoy out of this, you will not get the real taste. You'll get some reflection, some little sample. But when we realize that we're not the enjoyer, Krishna's the enjoyer. So in your service, now this is, you're asking a high question here. So when our service is solely for the pleasure of Krishna, chanting for the pleasure of Krishna, etc., then automatically, you don't ask for it, but the taste is there. Nothing can interfere with it. Haridas Thakur was being whipped and beaten in the marketplaces, and he was smiling. He was smiling. And he was totally undisturbed. He was completely absorbed in chanting the holy names. And he wasn't smiling because he was thinking, just see how I'm tolerating. He was smiling because he was associating with Krishna. When you associate with the sun, you feel warm. When you associate with Krishna, you can't help but feel bliss, because Krishna is a reservoir of bliss. So you're not asking it, but it's automatic. If you jump in the water, you may ask, well, how can I get fully wet? You simply jump in the water. Not very difficult, is it? So when we actually jump into the ocean of devotion, then automatically you're going to feel Satchidananda, blissful. But that isn't our, if you think, I want to feel blissful, I want to feel blissful. That may be there in the beginning stages, and that may spur you on, but it may not also. If you don't feel blissful, you'll go away. Or you'll get depressed or something. You see, because we're still conditional. Devotional service is anyabilasita shunyam jnana kamajina vitamis. It's without any condition. That's what we're aiming at. When you associate with devotees who are more advanced, of course, that helps us to realize that. So you go through what stage? It's like a child. When you get married, you'll have kids, I suppose. And you'll see with kids, they go through stages. You went through stages. And, your parents, they praise you for nonsense in the beginning. When you're a little kid, you're making a mess, but they say, well done, very nice. They give you what you like. They give you sweets. When you're 17 years old and you're still asking, Mum, I want the candy floss. I don't know if you have that here. Give me ice creams, give me this, give me that. I want another toy. They're 17-year-old. Then the mother's going to start thinking, the child's not developing very well. Things change as you grow older. When you're a baby, then, the baby stuff. You have to have that taste, otherwise you won't. Children have to have a sweet taste. Although it's not the real goal of life, you could say. But they have to have it. So when we're new, yes, some taste, some fun, and so on and so forth will be there. But the real taste, that taste which will never go away, which is not affected by circumstances of any kind, birth, death, disease, old age, criticism or praise, when it's undisturbed, that's when the heart becomes cleansed, purified of any desire to enjoy anything except for nothing, actually. Only one wants is Krishnendriya. One simply wants to bring pleasure to Krishna. Nothing else. One has no intention of enjoying Krishna's energies in any way whatsoever. One simply wants to bring pleasure to Krishna. That stage is the beginning and the beginning of real happiness. I'll tell you an example. Now this is an interesting one. This is from a Christian also. His name was Francis of Assisi. Have you ever heard of Francis of Assisi? Franciscan monks. They're quite famous. They have many monasteries, or whatever you call it, in India. Franciscans. Well, he was the head of that order. He started it. He was very renowned. Prabhupada actually said he was a self-realized soul. That's pretty high credit. Prabhupada heard about him. He said, this is a self-realized soul. You could tell by his behavior. Anyway, this is a little impersonal, you could say, but it's the same principle. He was walking one night with one of his brothers, Christian brother, who kind of looked up to him like an elder brother. And they were walking, and they used to dress very, very little clothes, pretty much like I'm dressed, with just sandals, even in the winter. And it was really cold. And the other brother was asking him questions. How can one really find a real happiness? Real happiness. And he was saying, well, if we all become, read the Bible and learn all the Bible and everything, will that? No, that won't work. If we all chant all the prayers properly, no, that's not it. Well, if we all study all the sciences and of medicine and all the different things and this and that, no, that's not going to work. On and on he went with various proposals, and Francis said no. Then it was getting real cold. Late at night, they stopped at the monastery, bang, bang on the door. Nobody answered. Then eventually the caretaker came and said, go away, it's too late. You're too late. So they waited and waited, it got colder and colder. The poor brother was almost dying. He said, I can't take this anymore. And Francis said, try again. Bang, bang, he knocked on the door. The caretaker was asleep. He woke him up. The caretaker was angry. He came to the door and he had a stick. He said, I told you guys to clear off. You're late. Anyway, you were bogus. I don't believe you're Francis of Assisi. Get out of here. And he took the stick and hit him with a stick. Bang, bang. And they fell down into the drain. It was snowing. They were covered in bruises and snow and freezing cold. And Francis, with a big smile on his face, he said, this is where you'll find true happiness. Not in the drain, exactly. But when you're not, expecting, trying to make arrangements and thinking externals are going to make you internally happy. They're not. In Taoism, they have a saying that the Creator has hidden happiness in a place you'll never look. You look in the sky, you look on the land, you look in the water, you look all around you, you won't find it. So he's hidden it in the core of your heart. You never look there. It's internal. So when we actually connect with Krishna through service, selfless service, then automatically you'll feel come on a different level altogether. All these questions are automatically answered when we connect with Krishna. And it's the association of devotees, particularly, of course, with practicing devotional service in the association of devotees, which particularly, helps us to progress in that direction. Internal. In our heart of hearts, when the heart becomes cleansed of all these dirty things. Cheto darpanamajanam bhava mahadavagni nivarpanam shreya kuravachandikavataranam vidyavadu jivanam anandam budivardhanam padipadam panamvitashvadam sarvatmasnapanam param vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan. All glories to the Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dirt and dust which has been accumulated for many lifetimes and gives us a taste for the nectar for which we're always anxious. So go on, Sankirtan. Dance and chant. Okay? Dancing and chanting is the medicine. This is the real medicine. This is the Yuga Dharma. It will cleanse our heart, and simultaneously the real happiness will start to awaken. And if you want to get that, if you want to dance and chant, you can come to France and dance in France and go into trance. Okay? You can follow him. You can come to France and dance, chant and dance and go into trance. In the land of romance. That's why he's going. I know why he's going there. He's heard it's the land of romance. So he took his chance. And he's going to France. Maybe. Spain, first to Spain. You can chant in Spain, you can chant in Ukraine, in the train, in the drain, in the plane, or a crane. You can chant if you're insane, or on the lane, or if you're whatever. Happiness and fame and loss and gain. You can chant anywhere, even in Spain. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. So, just one announcement. अभी सभी भक्तों के लिए जो आए हैं वहाँ से सबके लिए प्रसाद यहीं पर होगा, तो आप लोग रुकेगा मत। आप सबके लिए प्रसाद की व्यवस्था यहीं पर है। And योगेश महाराज के साथ